Good morning, all. It is Tuesday, the 25th, and I'm back at home. Last week was in Alaska. An amazing time. My wife got to experience it for the first time. It's my fourth to Alaska, and I will be hitting that as much as I possibly can because I freaking love that state. Not a spot right now I'm going to buy anything and have a second home there yet, but who knows? You never know, right? Things could point that direction because I just enjoy going up there and get the hunting done. But the last day there, interesting. I've got a tooth right here. You got your 2 mm tooth, and then you got the one right to the side. I think it was number 10 is what it's numbered as on the charts. I had a root canal on that thing 15 years ago, but then it started acting up. It's a little tender one day, then it got worse and worse and worse to the point that when I'm flying home on Sunday morning at 12:05 a.m., I got to the airport, left at 1:55 a.m. That thing was just pissed. And I had 3 flights home. I had to go from Fairbanks to Seattle, Seattle to LA, LA to home. First 2 was okay, but man, the one from LA to home was miserable. And I'd already scheduled an appointment with my dentist for Thursday this week. I texted him from LAX saying, dude, there's no way I can make it. Is it possible to get in earlier? He's like, what's going on? I explained the situation because I'd set the appointment with his office. He's like, get in here first thing tomorrow morning. I walk in at 10 a.m. So got there at 10 a.m. and let me just tell you, it's the first time in my life I could not wait for somebody to shove a needle in my face and start injecting me with that stuff. It was the most blissful thing in the world to have my face numb because it was miserable. It's kind of hard to tell now. It's not as swollen up as it was yesterday, but this looked like a fight gone bad on my left side. But feeling awesome now. Him digging all that stuff out, just nastiness out of there, and abscess tooth. It was brutal. It was crazy how it came on like immediately. It was like 1 second I'm kind of hurting, the next minute is like, wow, huge pain. I mean, just whole side of my jaw from here all the way around, just from center to center, was just pissed. And the pain was going all the way. I feel like somebody's trying to split my skull from right here up, all the way into my eye socket. It was brutal. So, Dennis, love you guys. Thank you. that was one of the best things that could have happened to me yesterday. Slept like crazy last night. Best night I've had in a long time. So let's get into the markets right now. So those of you who may have seen quotes, I talked a little bit about this last week, saw quotes last week. There was some ugly stuff that we were having to offer. Well, let me show what's gone on in the mortgage-backed securities this last week. Pretty interesting stuff. So we saw a little bit of, we talked before. Again, I'm going to hit on this again. That if we broke below this 101.90, somewhere in there, I think it was right up in here, that we're going to see potential risk. Well, huge fall. And it just kept falling. Then when you get here, and we had a gap down opening, meaning, and I talked about this, I believe, on Friday, we had this gap down opening. That was a very, very, very scary thing for the people in the market. Like, well, wait a minute, where is this bottom going to be? You see these gap down openings, they pumped up rates to protect themselves, right? And then we've hit that bottom. We've been crawling back. We closed the gap. This gap is closed. I put these 2 red lines in here to illustrate the gap. That got closed, meaning we went back and we went past it. Now we have that there's other levels in here that we're able to go past. And as long as we're able to keep going past these, we may, and this is what I believe we may do, I can't be 100% certain, crawl back to about this point before we start seeing it going back negative again. Now that's not going to be a massive amount of movement to influence. It's going to influence rates a little bit, but not a ton. But if we bounce off of this downward trend line, and we can't break through it, then we could create another downward trend. So what we have here, and what I've seen in the past, is it likes to at least go back and recover half of its massive losses. When it loses quickly, it likes to go back to about half of that. And what it is, then continues on its path. What it is it really gets itself back in that trajectory. Now, we're also, I'm going to draw another quick line here on this. We're also starting to form in what could become, I gotta get to my tool. We could create right here this upward channel, right? So because of that, we could create this upward channel. Then they're going to collide, and we're going to see, is this going to continue? Is it going to hold? Is it going to force it downward? We don't know. So it's one of these situations, kind of hard to say what we're going to experience here when it comes to the charts themselves, especially since we have the way the economic news works influences it one way or the other. And this is a big Fed week, right? We've got the Fed, their big meeting actually today, their 2-day meeting today and tomorrow. And we're going to start when we start getting those notes, it could change things, right? They're going to be looking at how they're going to affect the economy. Is they going to be doing rate hikes? Yeah, more than likely they are. When they're going to start, we don't know. They're going to start talking about that. I'm sure there's going to be released some more data on when and by how much. That's another thing that's going to impact it. How big are those rate hikes going to be? The other thing is they're tapering on their repurchases of mortgage-backed securities, right? So they were buying mortgage-backed securities and they are reinvesting the gains. So every time they're getting that return out of it, or the whatever is coming back as far as the interest return on those mortgages that they had purchased into through the mortgage-backed securities, they are reinvesting that. Well, now they're looking at not doing that anymore, right? So if that's going to be the case, it's going to limit the amount of capital that's available in the mortgage-backed securities, therefore push the rates up. Raising rates, though, may not be as painful to us as we think, right? So it could also do some things to the economy that would possibly help mortgage rates. So it's really, because when we're talking about their inflation that we're dealing with right now, inflation being so rampant, if they raise rates, it's going to hopefully curb inflation. Inflation being one of those things that pushes people away from mortgage-backed securities, you can push more into it, get the rates a little bit more stable. Hard to say what's going to end up happening. You've got to wait for the notes. I'll watch and see what analysts have to say, and I'll convey that information to you on Friday. So we'll talk again on Friday, and we'll go over what we see. Hope you have a very, very good Tuesday, and we'll see you then.